Welcome to When Technology Goes Wrong. I'm your host, Paddy Dhanda, and I have the pleasure of heading up the product discovery and agile practices here at QA. Every episode, we take a deep dive into a technology fail, figure out what happened and how we can learn from it. Joining me today is Charlotte Jee. She's the news editor at MIT Technology Review. Charlotte covers the biggest stories in tech with a sharp eye for what matters and what goes wrong. Hi, Charlotte. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'm loving your outfit. You've really coordinated for this podcast.
I've actually dressed as the Greek flag by mistake. I realised this morning, but yeah, you're very welcome.
Looking great. And so Charlotte's here to talk about one of MIT Technology Review's most anticipated annual features, the worst technology failures. From AI gone rogue to billion-dollar blunders, last year's list was a sobering reminder that even the most advanced technologies and the companies behind them are not safe. We'll explore what went wrong, what these failures have in common, why every organization working with tech, which is basically all of us, should be paying close attention, and maybe even what's on the radar for the leading tech blunders of 2025. So Charlotte, just in case someone out there hasn't heard of MIT Tech Review, could you just tell us what it is and who it's for?
Yeah, of course. We're really for anyone who's interested in technology and particularly in kind of what's about to come around the corner. That's really where we specialize, is sort of looking at what's happening now so you know what's going to come next. We are actually the world's oldest continuously published print magazine, which surprises people. We've been going for 126 years.
Wow.
I feel like the phrase continuously is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But anyway, and we, as the name suggests, are affiliated with MIT. We are editorially independent, but we have a sort of financial backing from them, which is helpful in this scary world of journalism that we're in. And yeah, so that's us.
Wow. I'm trying to think. Over 100 years ago, what kind of content you would have been?
Oh, it's amazing. Like there's, if you go and look at the archives, it's just incredible. There's planes. How excited are we about planes? And obviously microwaves. And there's just, you get to see the kind of broad sweep of what's happened over the last century or so. And it is really fascinating. And also great design.
Nice. I think I'm going to have to have a search and find out.
Please do.
Really interesting to see exactly what people were talking about back then. And for those who may not have dived into this particular feature in the past, can you tell us what the worst technologies list is and why do you publish it each year?
Yeah, of course. I can't really tell you exactly when we started doing this, but a while ago. It's run by Antonio Regalado, who is actually our biotechnology editor. But for some reason, he just takes a particular sort of joyful glee in dissecting what's gone wrong. And obviously, it's a bit of a cliche to say, we're doomed to repeat failures that we don't learn from. But it is true. And tech as a sector really does seem to love repeating the same mistakes again and again. So even though, your mistakes kind of teach you more than your successes in a lot of ways. So I guess maybe our goal is just to help out by highlighting what they are. And so, yeah, Antonio basically draws up a shortlist every year with input from the wider team. And then we just have a really big debate about what should be on there, what shouldn't. Everyone loves it. It's like a yearly Christmas present for the newsroom because we get to just, talk about big failures and what's gone wrong. And yeah, sometimes it's just, we can just point at it and laugh at it occasionally. So that's enjoyable for journalists to just, joke around.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if I was a tech company, I'd probably be shivering in my boots, hoping I don't make it onto that list.
Yes, we haven't tended to get much pushback from the list because it's stuff that's kind of pretty inarguable. But yeah, I can imagine occasionally what the senior leadership of some of these companies is thinking. Oh no, not this time.
Well, could you tell us about a few of the biggest failures on the 2024 list?
Yeah, of course. So we had a whole bunch. It was published in December. Obviously, you should go and read it yourself on our website and subscribe while you're there. But the one that really stood out to me was the astronauts returning from the International Space Station. Obviously, that's now happened. But at the point when we compiled the list, they were stuck there and did end up being stuck there for 9 months, which is a really, really long time. They were returned to Earth in March. I don't know if you remember, but at the time, Trump made some really weird comments about, I think her name's Sunita Williams, about her hair. He was really obsessed with her hair. He also speculated what their relationship might have been like on the spaceship, which was entertaining. Apparently, they're very good friends, which is good because they lived together for 9 months. And yeah, I do sometimes think about like what must that be like day to day, living with someone in a tiny capsule where you do all your sleeping, eating, do your job, exercise. Like anyway, so they were stuck there due to technical issues with the Boeing Starliner spaceship that took them there. And yeah, there were issues with helium leaks and thruster problems. Don't ask me to elaborate further on those, but that was the issue. And the only reason that they came back when they did was because SpaceX basically rode to the rescue with its Dragon spacecraft. So it's a complete PR nightmare for Boeing. They basically had to be bailed out by Elon Musk. And also, you might remember that came on top of lots of other issues for Boeing. That I think it was also last year that one of the doors on a plane just sort of fell out in the middle of a flight because some kind of defective plug, I think. And it also obviously is being investigated because of problems with the 737 MAX, which is the one that had the automated flying software problems.
I think I've seen a few documentaries on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sort of hard to say what next for Boeing, but I imagine it's a pretty tricky time to work there right now.
So these tech failures, they're not your small gadget. These could be literally anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, we also had the CrowdStrike outage. I don't know if you remember that. But yeah, I mean, as Antonio said, their motto is "We stop breaches," which is true because no one can breach your computer if you can't switch it on. So yeah, that's what happened to people back in last July. I don't know if do you remember this outage?
I don't remember it. No.
It seems to have affected people very unevenly. I mean, I knew it was going on because of the news, but on a personal level, the only reason I knew it was happening was because I couldn't book myself into the yoga class I normally book into online. So I was like, oh, it's come for me as well. But it had serious impacts as well. Like it affected hospitals, airlines. I think Delta is currently suing for this issue. I don't know. That might be something to watch out for. What the courts decide in terms of liability.
Was this the payment outage, or is that a different one?
No, it wasn't. But yeah, that's a good point. There's been a few. I personally, as a tech journalist, love an outage because people get very excited about them. They always say that it's hackers, it's China, it's Russia, it's criminals, and it's always a developer hasn't updated something or has shipped an update that's broken things. Like it's literally always just one random person in a team, in a software team that's messed up something. I would honestly pay good money to be a fly on the wall to witness what happens when they realize what they've done. But yeah, so it just goes to show, normally when tech fails, it's the causes are usually very boring in my experience.
Well, I remember that payment failure, and I know it's not probably on the list, but I was actually traveling back from London, and I remember getting to Euston. I always get a coffee on the way, and literally all the payment card machines weren't working, and there were people there who only had card. They had no cash, and they were only accepting cash. And I just jumped straight to the front of the queue because I'm quite old-fashioned. I had a few coins in my pocket,
amazing.
So I got my coffee, and everyone just giving me dirty looks. But anyway, that was a real example of have a plan B.
Yeah, take cash. I mean, yeah, it's not a bad idea. I think it's also moments like that where the veil gets kind of pulled back a bit, and you realize how fragile the modern world is because there's so many layers of complexity, and it only takes one failure somewhere in that chain to balk everything. So yeah, it's always a bit of a sobering moment when you realize, oh, we're all relying on this certificate being updated or this update being shipped properly. I'm
probably the most unluckiest guy with tech right now. So a few weeks ago, and it comes in threes, my broadband kept cutting out, and like I could just about cope with that. but you try telling that to the kids.
Yeah.
It's almost like the world's ended.
Yeah.
Because it kept dropping out. They were trying to play their computer games, trying to watch YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a disaster. Yeah.
I literally went to 3 different providers and the last one actually fixed it. So it was incredible, that whole experience. The other one was my kettle failed.
Oh, right.
I mean,
how does the kettle fail? Please tell me.
It just stopped working on me. And I was like, this cannot be happening because I rely on that kettle every day.
Yeah. That would be one of the first things to distress me in terms of technical failures in my house. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to activate myself without a cup of tea. Anyway.
And then I got a new car and I thought, new shiny car, great. The whole point I got a new car is it's going to be hassle free. And then the alarm went faulty and it just kept buzzing all day.
Cars are actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about because we have sort of made cars so complex now and, got rid of things like buttons, put in screens. I mean, basically, previously, if you know how to drive, you can get in a car and you basically know what you're doing. Now, you sort of have to you've got to read a manual, you've got to familiarize yourself with so many things before you can actually safely drive a car. So yeah, I think that's a good example. And there's obviously there are benefits to that, but it creates more work for the consumer. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And I've just got back from Phoenix,
right,
Arizona, and I got to ride my first ever driverless car.
Oh, nice. How did you find that?
It was pretty interesting. There were a few things that I was surprised at. So I thought it would drive like a learner, very slow and careful.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this car, we were giving it some. Every time it got to the traffic lights, it was the first one to sort of accelerate way faster than any of the human drivers out there. And but it had some real great safety features in there. I remember there was one point where we were going through a residential area and there was a child on the curb. Mm-hmm. And the child hadn't stepped into the road yet. But the car could sense that there was a young person there and it just slowed down just for that little sort of section just to make sure,
That's
just in
pretty
case.
Cool. How fast did it get up to? Do you remember?
It was going to whatever the minimum speed limit or the maximum speed limit was for that section. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that was interesting. So it almost accelerates that speed and then stays there constantly and then obviously keeps its distance. But there's a great example of things go wrong, they could go very wrong.
Well, that's the thing. And that's why driverless cars have been stuck in a kind of slightly liminal, they're there, they're not really in many places. And I don't know. I'm kind of fascinated by that. For me, if you can get a driverless car to work in London, I reckon you could deploy them anywhere. But obviously no one has managed to do that. So will it be possible? I don't know. We have very, very different roads, obviously, and everyone everywhere all the time here. So we'll see.
And it just goes to show, like we were talking 100 years ago, the types of failures that the publication were talking about. I mean, another 50 years from now, God forbid, what we'll be seeing in that list.
Yes, I know. I have a few. I do have a few thoughts about what that could be, but it's up to you whether you want to get onto that now or later.
We'll cover that at the end of the episode. So, what did you find most surprising on the list? Like with new technology and innovation, what feels like daily sort of breakthroughs in tech. There's also this kind of increased chance of failure, and we talked there about cars are now so automated. There's just so much in terms of electricals in there. What sort of surprised you in the list?
There weren't really, in terms of surprise, I wasn't really that surprised by anything on the list, but I was amused by some of the choices for what we chose to include. We had AI slop as an entry on there. I don't know if you remember, but last year there was a lot of shrimp Jesus going around on Facebook. Have you seen this? It's like an AI generated image.
I clearly haven't lived, so I missed that.
Yeah, it's an AI. It's actually, it's not even an image. It's like a genre of images that don't ask me why this exists. I don't know. I guess engagement bait probably, but basically Jesus depicted as a shrimp went around a lot. I think that we're in a really interesting era with AI because people are just sort of seeing what they can make it generate. And I feel like, now some of the shine is kind of worn off. Like we know we can generate images. But at that point, people were still pretty excited about that. And so, there was just sort of AI imagery everywhere. I mean, I think that's a trend that's only going to increase. I mean, I saw something the other day about how many posts on Medium are almost completely AI generated now, and it's a lot. Like, it's a significant chunk. So I think that's an interesting one. We are reaching a real sort of tipping point where it's quite hard to say what's made by humans, what's made by AI. There's no regulation or rules, so good luck, basically, trying to guess. And in a similar vein, in terms of AI blunders, I think the funniest one by far was, I don't know if I feel like you probably will remember this, but correct me if I'm wrong. So Google's Gemini AI image feature, it seems like someone tuned it to be just like a little bit too obsessed with diversity, because it started generating like Asian female popes.
Yes, I remember that.
And that was just objectively really, really funny. So we had a good laugh about that. But I found that example fascinating because obviously, you know, and it was jumped on by some people who were like, well, there you go, you know, shows that tech companies are left wing. It shows nothing of the sort. But it's interesting that obviously they are aware of bias being an issue in AI models, and that being the solution. Like, it's obviously something they're working behind the scenes quite hard to try and address. But it was just really funny that was the solution that they found. I'm sure they didn't intend to, but that was where they ended up. And obviously it was rolled back very quickly, but not before it had made everyone on the internet laugh a lot.
And one of the other things that came to mind as you were talking that through, I know ChatGPT recently, they were kind of...
Oh yeah, it got really sycophantic. That was pretty funny. I mean, it is, but also like there's a serious point there, which is that AI being sycophantic is actually quite a big and slightly scary problem. Because there's a lot of things that you could suggest to an AI and it would basically go, yeah, I think you should do that. They've obviously tweaked these models. They've used like reinforcement learning through human feedback to, after the model's been trained, to then tweak it and try and address some of these issues and that means like explicit things like, how do I build a bomb? It's not going to do that. But there are still ways to convince AI to tell you things, and it's sort of like an overly eager assistant. Like, it really wants to help you with whatever it is you want. And yeah, it's really funny. We actually just published a story today about how easy it is to get different AI models to talk dirty to you. And we found...
There's a whole episode just there.
Yeah, I know. We found this, but this is kind of slightly to the sycophancy point. Claude from Anthropic, properly prudish, like absolutely not doing any of that.
Sounds Indian.
And DeepSeek, on the other hand, game for anything. So this was a piece of research done by a PhD student. I can't remember what they're affiliated to, but yeah, that gave us a really good laugh this week, just looking at that as an example of this. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was just sort of humoring myself. I was thinking if my mum could decide which AI model I should use, it would definitely be it would be that conservative one.
Yeah. With Claude for everyone. Yeah.
And I know we were sort of talking there about, you know, nearly always when these tech failures happen, it's because somebody's missed something or they've introduced some complexity. I was looking at some research. I mentioned this offline to you that I'm starting my journey of writing a book, which is all around product discovery. And one of the chapters is, why do we keep building the wrong things? And as I was looking through some of the research, Pendo.io, they're a sort of a cloud-based organization. And they did some research on how many features typically get built but are never used. And they had a stat of around 80% of cloud-based features on cloud apps are rarely or never used.
Oh, wow.
And it's an interesting sort of point, because as tech people, we love creating stuff. We love innovating.
Yeah.
We love kind of showing off our skills.
Yeah.
But we don't always build the right things that people need.
Yeah, tech as a sector and I think has become increasingly divorced from the people who use its products. I think there's multiple reasons for that. But I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, there's actually quite a funny attitude towards end users that I think has maybe always been there among some of the development community. But I feel like it's kind of bubbled up in a way because we're seeing more of these companies being led by people who have more of a pure tech background. And I think there's a bit more of an attitude of like, well, we'll just deploy when we want to. And, if it basically should really still be in beta, then tough luck. We're going to test it on you in the real world. We're not going to really do much kind of safety testing ourselves. And you're seeing that with AI. It's just being pushed out. And there's always, well, not always, there is sometimes a bit of a belief system behind that, which is that is actually, it's not just saving money, but it's actually for the benefit of humanity, because essentially there's no way to know what AI is going to do until it's deployed. I'm not completely convinced by that belief, personally. I think, these are some very wealthy companies. They probably could pay to do a bit more internal checking of their products. But yeah, sorry, I feel like I've taken you on a massive tangent.
No, I think it's a great point. I mean, part of that reason could be the sheer pressures that the leaders are under in these organizations, especially now, AI being this new shiny toy. Everybody's expecting your own platform to have some form of AI.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a element of sort of almost, keeping up with the Joneses, almost like whatever everyone else is doing, we've got to show that we're doing that as well?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been the story, I think, of the last couple of years. But it's really interesting because we're now seeing, The Economist did a piece about this recently. We're seeing things, obviously the Gartner hype cycle. We're definitely entering the kind of the down for AI. I think there's disillusion creeping in because when ChatGPT was launched and large language models became the thing that everyone's building everything on top of, I thought we're never going to put that into things like search engines because it's just so obviously not suitable for anything that requires factual accuracy. I was wrong. Turns out that's just a cost that we all have to bear because, tech companies have decided that is the future. And so, there's been this really, really fierce competition. I mean, it's interesting because Apple has actually really held back on going all in on AI. And actually, I kind of think they may end up being proven right to do that. I don't know. I think at the moment, we're trying to put AI into everything. And really, we should just be putting it into a few things. And we're still figuring that out. But it's interesting because companies are not going to say, actually, our product isn't suitable for this. Of course they're not. So we're all kind of left to figure that out. But we're actually having to, rather than them fixing the product, because you actually cannot fix AI, it will always hallucinate because hallucinating is literally all it does. That's what it does. That's how it works. Because they can't fix the product, the rest of us have to fix how it's deployed. So you see companies doing things like buying insurance for AI now. And we're sort of starting to create all this infrastructure to make up for the shortcomings of the technology. Because it is fundamentally, AI is always going to hallucinate. And actually, if you look at, there's this belief that will reduce over time. There's no evidence to support that. reasoning models actually hallucinate at a higher rate than the large language models that came before them. So yeah, I think we're in a very weird time. I've never seen the tech sector bet the farm so big on something that is so flawed.
Yeah, and it was almost like I was thinking about this as well, that in the past, whenever we've had any kind of technological advancement in something, there's usually a good plan ahead. Like I'm sure, when Henry Ford came up with the car, he made sure we had some decent roads so that people could drive on them. So there's that strategic thinking that's gone into it.
Yeah.
ChatGPT came along. It was, again, this shiny toy.
Yeah.
I really don't think anybody had thought it through as to the implications, the impacts of this technology.
No, absolutely not. Tech companies just have incredibly free reign at the moment. They've formed these massive monopolies because of, complete failure to enforce antitrust law for a long time. And the harms that they're causing are just becoming more and more undeniable. I think about this sometimes in terms of like sort of societal pollution. Like, I don't know about you, but where I live, I can hear line bikes clicking all the time. And it's just like, that's something that tech companies have deployed. It's the noise that they make when they've been jailbroken, if that's the right word for jailbreaked. Anyway. Or, people playing things on their phone on the bus. I mean, it's so annoying, but it's just like a cost that we all have to bear from tech that's been deployed without any.
Especially those people without their headphones. They
I know.
They just.
I know.
Yeah,
I think
really
the Lib Dems said that they were going to ban that, which I'm not sure you really can ban that. But I feel like it would be a popular policy. But yeah, it just feels like tech has kind of become too big and powerful for its own good. It's actually now beginning to actually harm itself with some of the decisions that are going on. And yeah, I mean, they're the masters of the universe now. We saw that at Trump's inauguration. But I'm not sure that they necessarily are, really doing things like innovating well for consumers. I mean, when was the last time you bought a tech product that genuinely just completely delighted you? I don't know.
It's a good question. I really can't think.
I don't know. I can't. I mean, obviously the smartphone was pretty exciting. Since then, I'm not sure. Maybe robot vacuum cleaners are pretty cool. But I can't think of anything else.
I'm not
really.
caught onto that one. I might give that one a go.
No, it's good. They're good.
Got it. So going back to the list. So in terms of other products that were on there, like in terms of the split of products, we mentioned some AI stuff. There was these sort of examples of outages that you mentioned. What other sort of common themes did you see on that list?
That's a great question. I think a lot of them basically are sort of self-owns. They're things that didn't really happen because of external pressures. They happened just purely from tech companies malfunctioning, essentially. So that was a big theme. And also just like a degree of distance, sort of like I said, from the end users of their products as well. So yeah, I think that's the two that come to mind for me.
Yeah. And I know I touched upon sort of leaders, but what sort of lessons, if any, can leaders take away, can teams take away from the list?
I think a really big one is basically try to exercise a bit more intellectual humility. And I know that that's sort of like a really basic question, but I think being a bit more curious about the ways that your products are likely to be used would probably go a long way. And yeah, like I said before, just doing a bit more thinking through pre-deployment would be really helpful. So yeah, and I think something we see again and again is never underestimate human ingenuity. When people get their hands on things, they tend to do. I mean, I don't think it's possible to predict everything people are going to do with a product, to be clear. I know that it isn't. But I'm continually amazed by some of the ways that tech gets used and adopted. So I think that's another one. Like, be open to being surprised by how it gets used in the real world.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this the other day, the fact that as tech people, we do complicate things a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But actually, it's the simplest things that we tend to use quite often. Like, I don't know, what's the one thing you use in Word? Because you're an editor, you must use sort of these apps. What's a feature that you commonly use?
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that. This is now actually. Do you know what this is? This is kind of really mundane, but I love this feature. Scheduling messages in Slack. I'm news editor at a magazine that's very sort of globally distributed. Obviously mostly in America, but we have people kind of all over the place. So everyone's, we've got quite a nice culture as a company. People are quite respectful of other people's time and, don't want to message you outside of your working hours. So scheduling allows me to just pop up once I know someone is going to be awake and working, rather than, sending it to them in the middle of the night. But also write it at a time when it's convenient for me, because that's when I'm remembering it, or whatever it may be. So yeah, I find that really helpful. It's a tiny thing, but it makes a big difference. And
absolutely, it's these simple things that can really make a big difference to people's lives. Like I always go on about copy and paste.
Yeah.
Such a simple feature,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to Liv, who's one of the team who's behind the podcast. And yesterday we were going through looking at her Word app.
Yeah.
And I said, Liv, what you're seeing on the screen is a tiny percentage of what they built.
Yeah.
And so we went on to the kind of where you can customize your toolbar.
Oh, yeah.
hundreds of features that you could
so
potentially add.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing. Do you know what? There's another feature I love. I think it's Apple TV. If you rewind by 10 seconds, it also gives you the subtitles, which is such a useful. It's kind of obvious, you're rewinding it because you didn't hear what they were saying. So here are the subtitles. And I wish that I just want everyone to deploy that feature because it's great. It saves me and my husband a lot of like, what was that? What did they just say? Especially as, everyone mumbles on the telly these days. So yeah, simple, but
100%.
It's useful.
And, in terms of tech people, I mean, I mentioned them right in the book. And for me, it is about really understanding your user, your customer. Yeah. I'll give you an example. The other day, I was with a friend of mine and he forgot his reading glasses.
Right.
And we were at the restaurant and he pulled out his phone and he used a zoom feature on the phone. He took a picture of the menu and then he zoomed in on the picture so he could read it.
Smart.
And I've seen a couple of people do that.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, I think phone companies are missing a trick here. They should be you could almost sell a product or have that as a compelling feature of the phone.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder if, something I've been thinking about a lot recently is AI hardware. Do we need new hardware for AI? And that could be, that could be part of it, I guess, maybe. Reading glasses with other things built in. I'm thinking of like the Meta Ray-Bans. If you could boost those up to do everything, that would be great. And if they could adapt to your prescription, even better.
Yeah. So, look, we've sort of talked about some of the failures on the list. And we talked about, what people could do. So why is it important that we learn from these failures and these mistakes? And what are the consequences of if people don't? The pros and cons for companies?
I mean, it's obviously a waste of money to build something that doesn't work. But it's just such a waste of like human time, talent. I mean, it's just really, really inefficient. And as someone who enjoys efficiency, that sort of grates on me slightly. So yeah, I think that's why. And I also just think that doesn't it make life more interesting when we learn from mistakes? Isn't that how all progress has probably happened? Is people reflecting on, well, that didn't work. Let's try and do something a bit differently. But I think part of the reason why tech is like this is because of the cult of youth. I think there are relatively few people on lots of teams in tech who actually have a memory that stretches back over multiple decades. And I think that makes us lose something. So I would say maybe tech should prize older employees more as a way to deal with this issue.
And with us being in 2025, can you give us a sneak peek of what you're seeing at the moment that could potentially be on the list for this year?
Oh, I'm going to have a think about that.
Not allowed to say Trump or Elon Musk.
Well, that's just what you have to do when you're a tech journalist. It's one of the worst things about the job. You have to be aware of whatever Elon's doing at any given time. And I think also we're starting to see some really interesting things going on in fields like longevity. We're still, there's a lot of hype around that. And it's really interesting to me because it's like, well, why? Well, it makes total sense because if you're a billionaire, you can buy anything you want apart from a longer life. So they've obviously pivoted to focusing on that now that they're getting older and, more conscious of their own mortality. So that could be an interesting area for them as well. And then I guess just like massive levels of grifting remain interesting. So yeah, I mean, we will have absolutely no shortage of things to argue about this December when we compile the list. That's the only thing I can definitely say for sure.
Oh, amazing. So you got plenty of content to sort of sift through there, yeah. I think, for this
mountains. There will be mountains of content. And yeah, and like I said, kind of, there will also be lots of AI failures because, I mean, we actually created like a little offshoot list just for AI failures. So that gives you a bit of a sense of how many are going on. So I suspect that'll be a particularly fertile sort of field to look at.
And that's a really great point about sort of AI failures. I mean, we're shortening the product development life cycle all the time. And what we used to see was we'd have a lot of upfront thinking and planning, and then there was a lead time to get the thing built, the apps built, because we needed software engineers and lots of people to do the sort of technical work. And now with obviously AI taking a lot of that sort of labor out of the process, we're finding people are able to really shorten that loop. And so do you see a world where we're going to be inundated with products just because it is so easy to build them now? And that means perhaps they're not going to be that great.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you've got this whole kind of ecosystem of startups building on top of, foundation models from companies like OpenAI. I'm actually very unsure about what's going to happen with OpenAI, because there was a graph this week from The Information which set out, the future projected revenue for OpenAI. And it's like a little bit enterprise, and then basically just other. And the other is doing a lot of work. I don't know what the other is. Is that us individually paying for it? Is it, contracts with the US government? I don't know. Like, what does the other mean? So I don't know. I think AI is in a very tricky position where basically it's a lot of people are using it on a sort of personal level, like just checking stuff with ChatGPT or whatever. I mean, I do that, much as I feel bad about the environmental costs. But I think we're not really like there's not an alignment between the people that are using it and the people that are willing to pay for it. I think right now the AI sector and AI products are probably as useful and cheap as they may ever be, which I know sounds a bit like maybe I'm overstating it, but I really do think that could be the case, because someone's gonna have to pay someone eventually. And it feels a bit like a game of musical chairs at the moment, where it's like, okay, so when it stops, who is going to be picking up the bill for this? I don't know. I think AI may now be almost too big to fail as a sector, because companies have put so much into it. But I don't know, like everyone forgot about the metaverse pretty much instantly. So I don't know, but that wasn't being pushed into as many and as important applications as AI is. So I really don't know. I wouldn't like to bet the future of where this is all going at all. But I can see some pretty big, as people would say, red flags for the future of AI. And I think there's some big questions to answer still. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to give the impression that I'm massively down on AI. I'm not. There are some uses that are great. I mean, I use it for transcription. And I was doing some interviews with people about the impact of AI on loneliness a while ago. And it all went through to the app. I think it was Otter. And I could just go and query it. Like, did anyone mention this thing? And it will just instantly, show me, these people mentioned it at this timestamp. And that's amazing. That's so helpful, because when I started out in journalism, you had a dictaphone and you had to transcribe word for word everything people said to you, which took hours and hours and hours. So that's great. But yeah, what about can I turn the tables and ask you, what's your what AI thing, product, whatever do you find helpful?
I think the transcription is really good. So what I've been doing now, I've been attending a few conferences recently, and I've literally recorded some of the keynotes, and it's purely for my purposes, because then I can put it through some kind of summary AI and just pick out some of those key themes. So I think that is really invaluable. Having something like that.
There you go. It's not all bad.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the kind of image generation stuff. I am quite a traditionalist there. I like to doodle my own images, and I like that human touch. But for some people, if you're not artistic, I can see it would be a game changer.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because we had a new AI reporter who joined, and he asked one of those questions that only someone who's really new can ask. He was like, so why are we automating the things that are the most fun? And I thought that was such a good question, and it kind of made me think for quite a while about what incentives are driving us to do this, because I don't think I don't feel like the general public really wants automated image making. I mean, certainly not if they work in design or graphic illustration or anything like that. So yeah, it is interesting. And again, it kind of comes back to what we've been saying about tech not really being that connected with its user base sometimes.
Yeah, and as we wrap up, quick story. My daughter, who's 16, she's just finished her GCSEs and she's super creative, super artistic. And she said to me the one day, Dad, I hate AI because I wanted to have a career in creativity and art. And she said, but now AI can do it all, and it's really put a downer on
that
her
makes me
future
so
plans.
sad. That is sad to hear that, because really that's not what it should be about. It shouldn't be about destroying whole sectors, and I don't really think that it can. I mean, the problem we've got at the moment is basically, you know, I have a friend at a company that I probably shouldn't name, who is in the content team. And they have been told, because this company is doing a lot of AI products, they've been told that they have to generate basically all the content now using AI, using their proprietary AI tools. But really, that's not actually, all that's doing is changing their jobs. It's not taking their jobs away. But really, the ultimate effect is that they're just spending all their time correcting AI's mistakes. And I think if we have a future where everyone's just correcting AI's mistakes all the time, I mean, who wants that?
We all become full-time editors.
Yeah, well, just exactly. And I'm here to tell you that's not what you want. So yeah.
And look, we're going to wrap it up there. I really appreciate your time today, Charlotte. It's been so insightful for me. And there we go. Well, thank you so much once again, Charlotte.
Thanks for having me.